Is there any evidence to suggest that fairies have ever existed upon the Celtic Isles, from Britain to Ireland, Scotland, Brittany, Cornwall, England, Wales? If you wish to know the answers, or if you have never had any experiences yourself but you do believe, then you have to know about this guy called Walter Evans-Wentz, born in 1878, who wrote his university thesis on the subject, and that became one of the most looked at books to study real accounts of fairies. But first, before we dive into him and his work, have you had any fairy experiences? Whether the paranormal fairy, or you've been sort of trapped in time, whatever it might be, let me know in the comments, and at the end of this video I am going to share one of my fairy experiences. One of the ones that they've allowed me to share. For those of you who don't believe and completely dismiss anything that isn't mundane and human, then listen to this quote from the book. If the world is limited only to what we can see, hear and touch, then what of the countless experiences that have had no explanation but are attested by honest men and women? That quote was by Evans-Wentz from his book called The Faerie-Faith in Celtic Countries. So a little bit about Walter Evans-Wentz. As I said, he was born in 1878. His mum was from Ireland and he had a German dad. He moved from America to study in Oxford University in England, where his thesis became the book called The Faerie-Faith in Celtic Countries, which to him and at that time were known as Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall and Brittany, and across England, where he visited the oldest people in the furthest out places to find out what they and their great-grandparents taught them about the folklore on fairies, goblins, pixies, and that sort of fairy otherworld in these specific areas. And not just culturally, he was looking for like real accounts either by the people that he interviewed or their grandparents. So this project ultimately left an in-depth analysis on the faerie-faith from all of these areas, in which you can read the actual accounts in the book, and I have actually had some experiences that are written in the book, which is really cool. One of them, as I said, I will share at the end. So because the book was his university thesis, it was an academically structured essay, and it was full of first-hand accounts, first-hand research, interviews, comparisons, analysis. And his aim wasn't to prove that fairies existed, but to actually research the phenomena. It was a scholarly examination of this belief system in these specific areas. One statement in particular that really stands out to me from the book is this one, because it actually describes the story I'm going to tell you in a moment. The hill is not just the place of legends, but of real encounters. Men and women who have walked there tell of hearing voices, music, and even seeing strange lights they could not explain. And you know, when we all think of strange lights that we cannot explain, we associate this with like UFO phenomena. So just to put that to the side for the moment, Evans-Wentz looked into whether the fairy beliefs are purely psychological phenomena, or whether they point to deeper, perhaps spiritual realities, stating things such as, "It is possible that the faerie-faith is an unconscious projection of psychological processes common to all humans, clothed in the peculiarities of the Celtic imagination." So here he's like looking at how the sort of common mythologies and stories and imagery that we have in a culture influence the psychological hallucinations that our mind is going to make up for us. But what's really interesting is this is likely not happening to all of the people that he interviews in the book, or all of the people that I personally know having these experiences. He also says that the faerie-faith, whether seen as psychological or spiritual, addresses a realm of experiences that science has not yet been able to explain, but which countless witnesses affirm as real. And in this book, he also talks about the parallels of evidence from different cultures around the world, from Africa to the Eskimos in Greenland to India. He states that it is impossible for us day to day to say what parts of the faerie-faith are purely Celtic and what are not so, because comparative studies prove that mysticism is fundamentally the same in all ages and among all peoples, everywhere. You can basically have an entire family witness something and come away with the exact same statements and experience from anywhere in the world. So now to a fun part, a witness account from the book itself, one of my favourites. So a John Wilmot and his wife in Constantine in the year 1900, they say that at a farm near where they lived, a piskie, and yes, piskie, not pixie, used to come at night to thrash the farmer's corn. The farmer in payment once put down a nice new suit for him. When the pixie came and saw it, he put it on and said, "Piskie fine, piskie gay, piskie now will fly away," and they never saw him return. So that's a sweet little story. There are some gruesome stories, and here is my own personal witness account. So I was at a little festival in St David's on the west coast of Wales. I was 13 years old, and I was walking at night time. The sun had set past the coast, so I was here, and to the left of me was the ocean. The cliff face was dropping here. To the right of me was a load of fields. And I was in the liminal space between ocean and land, and I was 13, which young teenage years and hormonal years are super liminal, where a lot of these experiences tend to happen for people. And I remember looking over to my right at the fields and seeing big balls of colour. Now, I was like, are they lasers? Are there people over there carrying these big bright lights? But that wasn't possible because those lights started moving in impossible ways, basically, like jumping over each other. And they had different colours. I remember like green, orange, pink, blue. It was all just very unexplainable, and I forgot about it for years and years and years and years. I didn't even mention it because I didn't want to sound crazy, and then I started looking into this sort of thing and realised that that is not uncommon for that area at all, actually. And that is just one thing that I've experienced. I've got like a lot of friends, and I know a lot of people who have the same experiences, whether we're talking about fairy experiences, spirits of the land, people in indigenous cultures who have like deeper relationships with the natural spirits of place. And if you're interested in the world of psychedelics, you will be happy to know that Terence McKenna, who is like the man of the mushroom consciousness, wrote the introduction to this book, but in the 1990s. So do you think that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people sharing the same experience gives any legitimacy to the experience or the phenomena? Do you believe that time, space, reality is perhaps far more complex than we could have ever imagined, to the point where actually it is quite impossible to capture these things on the camera or the phone? Because if they do exist outside of space-time, then they probably have a lot more control in our world than we might believe they do. And if there's anything in this video that has sort of perked up your ears, please let me know down in the comments. But for now, just to support me carrying on with these videos and my journey in this, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and you can check out all of the workshops, classes and events that I host in the description to this video. Blessings everybody, Awen.